Yes, you're referring to the story I mentioned once of a woman a middle-aged woman. She had been divorced, and she tells me, now let me preface this by saying this. She told me that she worked at a place where several people saw her. In other words, she was in some sort of public evidence. She worked at a busy company, with executives and people coming in and out, public people, and also the members of her office, her staff. She did very well financially. She was independent financially. She had means to support herself. She wasn't looking for somebody to support her, basically. I remember that she drove a brand new car, and I remember specifically because the first time she came into the office, as I saw her parking, I made note of the fact that it was a new model of car. You know how manufacturers change the model from time to time? So that year, that new model had just come out, and she was one of the first ones to get it, and I hadn't seen the model that had just come out yet. So I actually took a look at the car because the shape of the car, whatever. So she comes in. In other words, she's a woman that did well for herself, and she tells me that in the 10 years that she has been divorced, not one man has invited her even for a cup of coffee. In other words, she was an attractive lady. She was healthy. She worked out. As I said, she was economically solvent. She was well dressed. In other words, you would look at her in the street, you would say, that's a good looking lady, that's a person who's, and she told me, and I don't know whether she meant this as an exaggeration to make a point or whether she meant that literally. What she said was, in 10 years since I've been divorced, at first she didn't relate the divorce. She said, well, in the last 10 years, in 10 years, I haven't had a single date. So I pressed on the issue and said, well, what do you mean you haven't had a date, in 10 years? Not a date. I haven't gone out. Nobody has asked me out. I said, well, surely you've go out to eat with your friends or male friends, I meant. And no friends, no male friends, no, she lived with her mom, a quiet life, work to home, home to work, and absolutely no attention whatsoever from male company. This is what she said. But she wanted to have a life with a man. She wanted to be married. She wanted to have a relationship. She wanted to build her life with somebody. We worked through this for a few sessions, and I remember the session that was crucial when she actually released the resentment that was keeping her away from her own happiness. Happened on a Saturday afternoon. I remember that really well. It was a 2 o'clock appointment on a Saturday afternoon. And the events that I'm about to tell you, I found out, of course, when she came back. And she tells me that when she left the office, after the huge catharsis, after the huge healing, after that encounter with the light, after the delicious encounter with something bigger than us, that resides within us, that heals us. After that session, she leaves the office, drives west on the main road right by the office, and stops at the first gas station. I know which gas station she meant, which was a few blocks away from here. She stops to refuel her car. And next to her, in a pump next to her, there's a man refueling his car. And of course, he also takes notice of the fact that she's driving a nice new car, and he comes over to ask her about the car. But of course, it wasn't about the car. The car was nice, but it wasn't about the car. And they start talking, and it starts off about nice car, I just got it, because it was a brand new model, like I said earlier. But they start a conversation right there at the gas station. They exchange email addresses. They eventually exchange phone numbers. They start going out. And as of the last I heard from her, she was very happily engaged in a relationship with this man. They were both very happy. A few weeks had already transpired. They had already gone out. They had gone to dinner. They had talked. They had exchanged emotions and feelings. I mean, things were going well for them. And I was so happy for her because this was a good person who tells me the first time that she came over, she tells me, well, and she was almost crying the first time she came in. She says, in 10 years, I haven't had a single date. And I remember the expression because it called my attention. She says, not even a cup of coffee. You know how it's common to say, oh, let's have some coffee. It may not go past that, but it's common to say, oh, let's have some coffee one day. She tells me, and she uses this expression exactly. She says, not even a cup of coffee. 10 years. At the end of which she meets a man at the gas station refueling her car, leaving the session after she just released this major resentment that was archived, stored in her unconscious mind that had basically been blocking her own happiness. Now, I know that this can be pure coincidence. It just so happened to be right after that session, I know. But in 10 years, she had several personal experiences, and not one of which resulted, as she said, even in a cup of coffee. And after she had that release here, the healing, the forgiveness, the miracle of forgiveness, well, that very same day, leaving the office, she meets a man with whom, as of the last time I saw her, she had been very happily engaged in a relationship with. So I think that's such a nice story. I love this story, and thanks for asking.